You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello and welcome to Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen.
We do indeed. And today we're making it happen with just the two of us. I thought of a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. The first, because lately when I've been giving programs to various executives and stuff, they always say, well, we had a 3-hour meeting the other day, and you gave me an idea for this meeting, and I guess we should warm up for meetings. And I was gobsmacked at how many people don't know how to run a productive meeting. So I was like, we got to talk about this. So we are.
And I agree. These are some great topics Rona came up. We're a little behind on the production, so we got to do a couple. These will be a little shorter.
Obviously, Jeffrey is really into transparency.
Yeah, and this will be a little shorter. Well, these will be a little shorter. We're going to knock out 3 or 4 of them. Hey, it's part of the production, and I am into transparency. So, and that's about it.
That's why I don't.
My
tell
voice.
him
Oh, that's
anything.
the other thing. My voice is going. So you'll hear a lot more of Rona. Not that ever happened.
That, as it should be. Okay, so how do we get productive meetings? There's a way that I think a meeting, and you like this because you're all about structure, about how meetings should really be run. And I think a lot of managers and leaders don't necessarily. What?
I need my thing.
He needs his thing.
I need my thing. Okay, now I got my thing.
Because he's got a hot
right, and I don't want banging
trivet thing
banging on the table.
Yeah. Okay. So now we lost my place. So a lot of managers don't really know how to set up for a meeting and let your people know we're going to have a meeting about X. That's just an overall. Maybe give them some of the points. And I think like talks where you should never have more than 3 points, three objectives is the most you should have for any meeting. What? I gave you credit.
Yes. The 3-point process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, wait a second though. Before we get started on this, why do you think that managers are having more problems with meetings, or have they always had it? Now that we're through it, we look back and say, "Isn't this obvious?"
Yeah, that's what I.
So you think this is normal?
I think what happens is they get so involved in the weeds that they don't see, or in the trees, they don't see the forest for the trees. They're so in it. It's like, well, we have to have this all day meeting, or we have 30 people in the meeting, and they don't consider all the little things that actually make a meeting better.
Well, do you think that, and my question was, do you think it's changed generationally, that they're less structured, and so, or is it just, this is normal transition, new people coming in?
I don't know if I have an answer for that. I do know that a lot of the people in my programs are probably in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah, well, millennials are now.
Yeah, millennials, right?
Yeah, they've taken over. They've taken over leadership roles. Yeah. They're the number one generation in terms of leadership.
Yeah, so I think it's each generation has their learning curve, and I think this is what they're doing. They're in their learning curve now.
All right.
So
all right, good. Well, I just wanted to
now,
get
since
your
we're being
opinion.
transparent, he does this, and I'm like, speed it up. I was the one who was ready to start the list, and you were the one who brought it back to. Before we get into this, he has nothing to say.
No. The thing is, I just think our pacing should be a little quicker on this. It's a little, this is kind of like, let's get through this because that's what drives me up the wall about meetings is somebody goes on and they're going at this pace as opposed to let's cover this stuff.
I speak so I actually enunciate every word, unlike some people who slur.
I do California. Dude, let's just run it together.
That's right. So, okay. So let's go through how I think a meeting should go, and you can tell me if you agree.
Okay,
with me,
sounds good.
So is that fair?
Good. Wait, can I make one comment before? Just one comment before.
What?
So when we went to start when I started the corporation.
Finish a sentence.
Yeah, exactly. When I went to start the corporation, I got a bunch of colleagues together because we had a project already on the board to do, and talked to Jim, who I've worked with a lot. And I said, I want to put together a group and we're all going to come. So if you can be, great. And he said, so what's your agenda? And I said, I don't have an agenda. We'll just kind of talk and roll it. And he said, never. He goes, I'll never attend a meeting without an agenda.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the thing. A meeting should have an agenda.
Yeah, right. And no more than 3 points. People can't remember. And if you're going to have, when you have those 3 points, let them know in advance. Tell them we're going to be talking about, meeting structure, and then we're going to, how we're going to talk and how we're going to, so everyone knows exactly what they're going to talk about, so they can make notes on what the points they want.
So would you say 3 points or three topics?
Three topics. Yeah.
Three
topics.
Three areas to focus on. Okay, yeah. I like that.
Yeah. And then figure out who really needs to be there, because sometimes employees will get FOMO, fear of missing out, and I want to come to the meeting, or just the opposite. You think you need all these other people and they don't need to be there.
Well, it's a great way to avoid doing real work, is just going to a meeting.
Meeting after meeting, yeah.
And then having a comment on it.
Right, yeah. Make sure that it's small enough that you can have a good conversation without having a whole classroom full of people, unless it's an all hands on deck for a big reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Meeting rules and etiquette. Okay, start on time. Don't have a 9 o'clock meeting and then start at 9:15. If they're not there, well, that's a problem for more reasons than one. You need to respect people's schedule, and I think the best meetings are half an hour or less, if possible.
Yeah, and this holds for training. The leadership sets that tone. So if the leaders are late, or you might be on time for the first one, you're late for the second one, and the third one, people are going to start arriving late.
Right.
So you really have to be there. It should be, I like a little bit of the old, military. If you're there on time, you're 5 minutes late. So, and along with starting on time, end it on time. That's the biggest problem. People carried on.
Yeah. And with that in mind, set the ground rules in terms of time people get to talk. Maybe assign one person to keep everyone on target, because I know just from experience, because I do this all the time, and you point that out. I go off on, we both go off on tangents all the time. And it's important to really stay on topic. I mean,
wait a second. We don't live that, though. We go off tangents, and I think it's okay to be off a tangent.
But if you have a certain time for your meeting and you want to get to a certain amount of points in it, or a certain amount of topics, you can't go off too much.
No, you can't go off too much. It has to be within guidance.
Yes.
And I think if people understand the rules, which is why we're going over them, they'll do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone in and literally given people speaking sticks. Here, this is a present for you. Whoever holds this, and I decorate it, I make it fun and playful. Like, whoever has this thing with all the bells, literally the bells and whistles and stuff on it, gets to talk. You shush.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Did you ever have a meeting with Nerf guns where if you went off topic, they'd shoot you?
No, that's fun.
Well, yeah, except it does. It's amazing. If somebody's really serious and you shoot them with a Nerf gun, they get upset. So you can really derail a meeting that way. It was a creative way of having some fun.
That's really fun. And encourage participation. This is a tough one because everyone has a different personality. If someone's going to be shy and quiet, you're not necessarily going to get them to share ideas all the time. And that's why a warm-up can be helpful. And I'm all about, a playful warm-up. I do that for my classes. I have one that's called Interesting, where you ask someone a random question, and after they answer it, everybody nods their heads and says, interesting. And it's silly. Everyone gets to speak, so at least they kind of, do. So things like that, and you and I both have a million of those.
To bring personalities into it, which you did. On the DISC system, the eyes are the ones who always want to derail the meeting. That's their control and their influence.
Okay. I'm a high eye. Get your questions in advance, and if you know the personality, sometimes you may be able to pull them in with certain questions. Let's talk about virtual meetings. They're a little harder because they're not quite as intimate, and you can still have great games or polling or use a whiteboard or things like that where it
I've heard that argument about virtual meetings. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's because I'm a little disconnected from people. I think virtual meetings are great, and the time savings of not having to go anywhere.
Yes, that is true.
Is amazing. So I'm a huge fan of virtual meetings.
You can certainly put them in breakout sessions, and there is the thing that I find is just the connection in terms of looking people in the eye, really seeing their body language, the communication, because as you well know, more communication is done non-verbally. You little expert, you. So.
Well, and I do. You can read so much on people's facial expression.
Yes, there is a lot, and at the same time, it's still not as much, and you still don't have the eye contact, and that's huge. I think it's huge. It's like it's an energetic thing when you're right next to a person. You feel differently than you are, far apart, but
I feel less germing when I'm so it's good. I don't mind being virtually apart from people.
I know. Well,
okay,
there you go. Okay, and then after or at the end of the meeting, managers or whoever's leading the meeting, you really need to summarize it. Not just, okay, is there anything that we didn't get to, anything anybody doesn't understand? Just go back over, just make sure, because a lot of times people are afraid to say, I don't get this, or I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Just summarize it. Okay, so this is what we went over. These are, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, and let's talk next week. Does everybody know what they're doing? Yada, yada, yada. It's done. And
right.
then,
And I really agree. In summary, a lot of people think, okay, they summarize what was talked about. No, it's most important focus for me is the actions that have to be done and who's going to be doing it.
Does everybody know what they're doing? And then afterwards, follow up. Right. I would say, just this is what we talked about. Of course, if you're virtual now, they have like the virtual AI summarizer, which is awesome. And then feedback. See if you get, did everybody get a chance to talk or share what can be improved, because you always want to improve. But I think that managers just need to give a little bit of thought that, why do I need this meeting? Can this meeting be done with an email?
Right.
And if there are action items or things to be done, don't overtalk them. Just do it.
Right.
Pull the trigger.
Right. Well, and I recently heard a story. Supposedly Elon Musk was on a plane with a bunch of engineers, and he asked them, how long will it take to solve this problem? And they all said 6 months to a year. And supposedly, he said, turn the plane around. They landed back took the plane back into the hangar, and they solved it he said, we're going to solve this, and we're not leaving until we solve this. And supposedly it happened within 24 or 36-hour period, and they were able to solve it. So one of the problems with meeting is
that an urban legend?
Well, supposedly it's a true story about what he did, and it's grounded in my own findings.
Whether or not you're a fan of his, Elon.
I have a total man crush on him and what he does.
Not me.
Okay, so anyway, it's about getting things done, and a lot of times, meetings to meetings. I think you have an initial meeting, you lay some ground rules, you give some ideas for people to work on a subject, and then your next meeting should be the activity of accomplishing that task if you can, or taking major steps on it.
I was going to say, I think it depends on the kind of solving that needs to be done.
Right, okay.
Because just because a team gets together to work on a problem, I don't necessarily call that a meeting. I mean, yes, you are meeting and you're doing a physical thing, not necessarily just talking about it.
Well, take an example. Okay, let's say you're going to go out and, I don't know, you're going to take care of a little garden. You're going to do a little community garden. So you get the people together and you explain what's going on and you find out what they're doing. That would be kind of a discussion meeting. What are we going to do with this? How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? And then what are the tools we're going to need to do that?
Okay.
And then the next meeting is actually where you're actually doing the work on it. You're still having a discussion. I think if we look at meetings as active, we'll get rid of a lot of these stagnant meetings where meetings serve a purpose themselves. Meetings are always there to progress and move forward. So
Okay,
what do you think about that?
I understand what you're saying, and I just think I would call it doing. It's if the next step in the garden is everyone has their own spot and is going to plant whatever vegetables or flowers, I don't call that a meeting just because there are people getting together.
Well, you're gonna be communicating during that time. A meeting's about communication and making sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, well, I think that's semantics then. I don't think it's yes, I am planting things, and we're talking about, maybe what we're going to do with the vegetables once they're done, how we're going to share them or whatever. And it's not, I look at meetings as sit down, figure things out sort of thing, or brainstorming, or what's this week like, or who's got what on tap for sales sort of thing. Right. I know. So
and you and I both talk about this. We talk about semantics and words being important. Mm-hmm. For example, one of the things, we watched the fight last night, the Tyson,
if you can call it
Tyson Paul fight, or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a fight.
No, what was hilarious to me was the announcers. The announcers were like, they haven't changed,
That is true.
Well, the one thing I haven't noticed is there's no counterpunching. And the other guy goes, well, I've also noticed that there's no actual hits. And then I'm thinking, okay, the one thing.
There's a lot of one things, yeah.
Yeah. The best fight was with Serrano.
The women.
And,
the best, absolute best fight.
Was it Taylor? Taylor's?
No, it was Kate. I can't remember. Maybe it was Kate Taylor. I can't.
Maybe.
Anyway, but it was great, and it was great. Yeah, she was
great.
Irish, and I have to say, just a 58-year-old, I got to give him props getting into the ring with a 27-year-old. That's chutzpah. Anyway,
I think it was desperate for money. Anyway,
I would. Okay. You know what? I would go into the ring with Mike Tyson for $20 million and just run around a lot to stay away from him. I'm still pretty quick. All right.
Yes, you could at your age. You're very quick. So anyway, the semantics of meetings, I think if we change the semantics, like the fight, one of the things we were saying is, in MMA fighting, they've got 3 rounds, 3 intense rounds. What happened was the fighters go in for a couple intense rounds, then they seem to drag on, and then they get intense during the last 3 rounds. Yeah. Just cut it to 3 rounds. So changing the functions of it. And so going back to my comment, I think changing the concept of a meeting is going to make them much more useful, because we've got, you just doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
So maybe we should call it something else, like a gathering instead of a meeting.
A gathering, yes, a gathering of souls, a reaping.
A reaping of souls.
Anyway.
But that's, I really just wanted to make that point for this podcast, that if you are one who leads meetings, pay attention to what you're doing. Read the room too, when you're in there, and maybe follow some of these things if you don't do them already. And if you do, fantastic.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
Okay, well, that's great. I think this is very good, and I think it's, time-wise, it's good use of time. Somebody could listen to this, get some points.
It's a great use of time. I could be on my computer.
Hopefully they were entertained.
Well,
all right.
Hopefully you are. Anyway, all right. That's it for us. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
So is this a meeting or a gathering? I don't know. This is a
podcast.
This is a podcast.
This has been Biz-Souls. This is Biz-Souls information
sharing. All right. That's it for us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.